Friends, today we're heading back to Rochester, New York on the morning of June 17th, 1981. The weather was perfect. The city of Rochester seemed to be at peace. And on this beautiful day, William Griffin walked into a bank at 11:30 a.m. and turned what seemed like a perfect morning into a day that ended in violence, tragedy, and unanswered questions. Hey, friends! You're listening to Cold-Blooded Serial, a true crime podcast, and I am your host and true crime bestie, Tika. Let's dive in to the story of William Griffin and the Thurston Road bank takeover. Friends, I'm not sure what demons William was dealing with this morning, but prior to his attack at the bank, the 37-year-old William Griffin left the second-floor bedroom where he lived in his parents' home and walked down the stairs to their living room. He paused at the bottom of the stairs and then, without a word or a warning, he shot off 3 shotgun blasts that killed his mother, a handyman who was hanging wallpaper up in her living room, and he critically wounded his stepfather. Then he leaves his parents' house. He shoots a man who's working on the street and 2 random bystanders as he jogged 2 blocks to the Security Trust Company, which was a neighborhood bank on Thurston Road. Seconds after he entered the bank, people went crazy as William Griffin, who was born on March 30th, 1944 in Amsterdam, New York, took 9 bank employees as hostages and ordered the customers to exit. For the next 3.5 hours, William Griffin led police and FBI agents in a violent standoff in which he shot and wounded the first 2 police officers who responded to the bank's silent alarm, and then he shot 6 people who happened to be walking near the bank. Like, friends, he literally woke up and chose violence. First, he kills his mom, he injures his stepdad, kills a handyman, kills 3 people from his house to the bank, kills 2 police officers, and 6 random people who just happened to be walking past the bank. Like, I don't know what was going through this man's head. Friends, William Griffin shot off more than 100 rounds in total. It was so many rounds that the police had to use a garbage truck to shield one officer as he was being rescued. Doesn't this remind you of something off of an action movie? But to deal with this in real life, it's absolutely terrifying. So during this hostage takeover, Rochester police officer Jim O'Brien kept calling the bank. And he said that every time he called, the bank employee who answered the phone quickly hung up. I read an article from an FBI negotiator, and he said at that moment, the police and the FBI should have realized that the situation inside was unknown. This negotiator said that up to that day, up to June 17th, 1981? Yeah, up to June 17th, 1981, it's always been known that with hostage takers, they always want to talk to the police or the FBI because they always had demands. They always wanted to be heard, to be respected, and to be paid. This guy, William Griffin, didn't do any of the above. And that's what made this situation even more complicated for the FBI and police. I'm gonna veer off just for a second, but it's still relating to this case, okay? Midway through the standoff, a police officer enters the command post and tells the FBI agents, as well as the police officers and the police chief, hey, there was just a double homicide with a 3rd person critically wounded that had been reported a few blocks away. So the FBI agent on the scene is like, well, is this pertinent information or somehow related to this hostage takeover? No one knew for sure. So they were like, we're too busy dealing with this to worry about the homicide that took place a few blocks away. If they would have done a little more digging, they would have uncovered that William Griffin had already killed several people that morning without making any monetary demands. But they didn't know what they didn't know. They thought William just came to the bank and chose violence. They didn't realize that William woke up that morning, and before he even left his house, he went on a mini killing spree before he arrived at the bank. Meanwhile, inside of the bank, William waved the 9 bank employees into a small office. And now, friends, it's 2:30 p.m. He arrived at the bank at 11:30 a.m. William tells the bank manager to call the police and to deliver a message. Outside, the Rochester police officer, Jim O'Brien, the same one who had been calling the bank earlier, answers the phone. And the bank manager tells him, either you come to the front entrance doors of the bank at 3 o'clock, which is 30 minutes away, friends, and have a shootout with him in the parking lot. And through tears, the bank manager continued, or he's going to start killing hostages and throwing out bodies. The line then went dead. Why? Because soon as the manager ended that sentence of killing hostages and throwing out bodies, William Griffin killed the manager. William Griffin also had one of the hostages read a note to the police over the phone. Surprisingly, there were no demands. Instead, it was a rambling diatribe complaining about how bad his life was and all of the wrong that the world has done to him, So the police said that the note was so long and unfocused that it has never been read in its entirety. So, friends, what happens next changed the police history in the United States forever, because never in the history of the U.S. has a criminal killed a hostage on deadline. So all of the agents and all of the police officers were confused after hearing the hostage read this diatribe to them, that they're all asking each other in complete bewilderment, if this dude doesn't want money, power, or a helicopter, what does he want? The FBI agents and the police officers were witnessing something that no one had dealt with before. Exactly at 3 p.m., William Griffin commanded a 29-year-old bank teller named Margaret Moore to walk to the front of the bank in front of the glass doors. Petrified, she did as she was ordered. She stood in front of the glass bank doors, crying that she was a single mom with a young son. This psycho didn't seem to hear her and didn't seem to care. And as soon as Margaret stopped in front of the glass doors, William Griffin shot off 2 blasts from his 12-gauge shotgun. Both of the heavy rounds struck her in the midsection, violently blowing her through the glass doors and almost cutting her body in half. Outside, law enforcement was stunned into silence. At that moment, they realized this man didn't want money and he didn't expect a way out of this. William Griffin wanted to die. Right after killing Margaret Moore, the unhinged William Griffin walked over to a full-length bank window and pressed his body against the glass. He was in full view of a sniper that was stationed in the church across the street. The crazy thing about William leaning against this glass is that William was well aware that the sniper was there because earlier in the day, he tried to shoot the sniper. And less than a second after William's silhouette appeared in the sniper's scope, the sniper pulled the trigger. And William Griffin crumbled to the floor, dead. Friends, that's all I have for the William Griffin story. But that's not all I have for June 17th, 1981 in Rochester, New York. When I tell you that this day was like a curse that was put on Rochester, it really was. For a day to start off so beautiful and then just end in complete tragedy is absolutely insane. So we had the William Griffin Thurston Road bank killings, right? Well, on the same day, June 17th, 1981, 2 firefighters showed up to a fire in the town of Webster, and as soon as they arrived, they were killed by a gunman who was hiding and waiting for their arrival. I have never heard of crimes against firefighters because it's like, why would you do that? I couldn't find a lot of information on what happened. I don't know, like maybe one of the firefighters was having an affair with this man's wife. I have no idea. Not like that makes it okay. But I wish there was more information out there for me regarding this, because I would love to know like why this man hid and fired at these firefighters. Then later on in this same day, a handful of young adults were shot dead as they left a basketball game on Genesee Street in the city of Rochester. So that day, the police was working double time because, like, what in the world was in the air that just caused all of this violence and evilness, you know? All of the victims of June 17th, 1981 were only guilty of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And unfortunately, their lives were taken by those who didn't care about their lives or the effect it would have on society and their loved ones. And friends, that's the end of today's case. The Curse of June 17th, 1981 in Rochester, New York. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, your true crime bestie, Tika. If you made it this far, you're a real one, and I appreciate you. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.